everyone, and welcome back to Yes Please PaperCrafts. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you a quick tip on how you can create a shim for your cubes. And I'm talking about the Recollections cubes from Michaels. I think the brand that they have now is actually called Ashland. Hobby Lobby used to sell the Jetmax, and I'm not sure if they still sell these cubes anymore there, but if they do, they might be under a different brand. But basically it's those white cubes that are 14¼ inches by 14¼ inches. And so when you go to put your 12 by 12 paper pads or paper into these cubes, there's a pretty big, your paper will go in, it'll go in too far, and you have like a couple inches at the front of the cube. So if you get tons of paper pads in there, it's kind of a fight to get it out because you have to grab it. It's kind of, into the cube. So I thought, how can I go about, making something or putting something in there so that when I stuck the paper pads in there, it would stop them from going all the way into the cube. And so I came up with an idea to use a shim, cardstock shim. Now, this idea was originally, I saw it on a video, and I can't remember whose video it was, so I can't give credit, but it was somebody that was doing ink pad storage. And they had, I guess the Distress Oxide inks are shorter than the ones that they were storing, so they created a cardstock shim for that. And I thought, well, if it works for that, maybe it'll work for my paper pads. So what you're going to need to create the shim is a 12 by 12 sheet of cardstock, and this is some really old cardstock I've had probably for 20 years. It's even faded. It's just super old. In fact, some of the cardstock I used for my shims was like a bright orange and neon green. Because you're not going to see this. It's going to be in the cube at the very back. So you won't be able to see it at all. So you can use whatever ugly cardstock you have available. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to score this every 1½ inches. And if you don't have a scoreboard, you could just use a ruler and a scoring tool. So we'll go 1½ then 3, 4½, and 6, 7½, and 9, and then 10½. Okay, so then once you have it scored, it should look like that. Okay, so the next step, you need to figure out how far into the cube you want the paper pads to, how much you need to put in there to create that shim. I actually create mine at 2 inches, but it's going to depend on, what you're storing in there, how wide you want to make your shim. So what we're going to do is I'm going to actually just cut 2 inches. Because this cardstock is fairly flimsy and it's pretty thin, it's probably like a 60-pound cardstock. If you were using a thicker cardstock, you might not need to cut 2. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut 2 pieces, and then I'm just going to glue it together. And you can use any liquid glue. I'm using the Tombow Mono, what is it called? Tombow Mono liquid glue. I don't know why they had to give that such a long name. Okay, so we're just going to glue these 2 pieces together, and this is just going to make it sturdier. Like I said, if you had a thicker cardstock, you may not need to do this. And I would just start off by making 1 shim, and once you figure out if this is the right size and your cardstock's heavy enough, then make more. Basically how I figured out the dimensions was just to keep playing around with it until I figured out what worked. So you're just going to now bend it back and forth on the score lines. And it doesn't actually have to be perfect. Really just the shape of this, the structure of it is very strong. So when you go to put the paper into your paper pads into the cube and it hits this shim, it's going to hold up. Okay, so what you end up with is a shape like this, and I'm going to show you the shape from the side. And so what you're going to do is you're going to put it into your cube like this, into the cube so that this is showing on, this is what you can see once you put it into the cube. I'm going to put it all the way to the back, and then once you put your paper pads in, they'll all be closer to the edge of the cube. If you have a cube, now what I'm using is a cube that has dividers and it's 4 sections. So I put one this size in every section in that 4-section cube. But if you had, they do have cubes that have only 2 sections, or you might have a cube that's just a single cube with no dividers. You can still use this shim, you just have to make it longer. So what I would do is if you have a cube that has 2 sections, just make 2 and then glue it together so that you have one twice the size. And if you have a full cube that you want to make a shim for, just make 4 of these, glue them together, and what really matters is that you have the separation. You don't want to make them too close together because it's not as strong. You want it to be about this far apart because this makes the shim really strong. Just the structure of it makes it really strong. So I'm going to go ahead and take you into my craft room and show you my Recollections cubes with my 12x12 paper pads so that you can see actually what it looks like once all these shims are in place and how much easier it is for the paper pads to be pulled in and out of the shelf or out of the cube. Okay, so let's go on into the craft room. Okay everyone, here we are in my craft room, and if you're wondering why my voice sounds different, it's because I woke up this morning with a really bad cold. Unfortunately, just something I have to work around. What you're looking at here is the Recollections cubes from Michaels. I collected these cubes over the past probably 10 years, and I have my 12x12 paper pads and also some 12x12 specialty paper stored in these cubes. I added tabs to each of the 12x12 paper pads, and I used the tabs as a handle to pull the paper pads in and out of the cube. I also labeled each one so I know what the manufacturer and the name of the paper pad is. And then in addition to that, I wrote a number on the back of each tab, and that number is referenced in my visual reference guide that I can use to categorize and organize my paper pads. And I have videos on how I created the tabs and also how I created the visual reference guide, and I will link those videos in the description if you're interested. This is a close-up on how I store my 12x12 specialty papers. And I had purchased these Cropper Hopper paper holders, I don't know, it's got to be at least 10 years ago from Hobby Lobby. And I'm not sure if Cropper Hopper is still being sold. I see it some places like on Amazon. I also saw another brand, and it might actually be Cropper Hopper, called Advantus Storage Solutions. And I'll put a link to those paper holders in the description if you want to check them out. But I don't know that these Cropper Hopper ones that I have are actually available anymore, as I was not able to find these because I bought these as a set. It came with the larger one, which is about 3 inches wide, and then the 4 smaller ones. It came as a set. And I have not been able to find that on by doing a Google search, so I don't think it's available anymore. Anyway, I have divided this into different types of specialty papers like felt, glassine, corrugated, double-sided adhesive sheets, vellum, just like anything that has a special treatment. I prefer to kind of store that separately than to have it mixed in with the rest of my papers. I also created shims for the cubes where I was storing these paper holders because if I didn't have the shims there, the paper holders would go into the cubes and it was really difficult to get them in and out. When I created the shims, I made it to where it would make the paper holder stick out. You can see here about 1/4 of an inch. So it gave me a place that I could actually pull them easily in and out of the cube. And really makes it easier to get them in and out of the cube with the shim there. Without the shim there, it's very difficult. So now I'm going to show you a close-up of what the shim looks like in the cube. And you can see here, this is one of the 4 sections in this cube. And this shot was a little hard to get because I had a hard time getting my camera to focus. But that's what the shim looks like when you put it into the cube. It's amazing to me how sturdy and strong these paper shims are because they're just made from regular cardstock. But as I'm putting these paper pads back into the cube, you can see that I can just put them in, and I'm not being gentle with it. I'm pushing pretty hard, getting them back in there, and that paper shim is keeping all the paper pads lined up. And it's just awesome because it makes it so much easier to get the paper pads in and out of the cubes. I hope that I've given you some ideas for how you can store your 12 by 12 specialty paper and maybe how you can better utilize your cubes. And I'm giving you a little bit of a close-up here so you can see some of the other categories I have for my 12 by 12 specialty papers. If you like this video, please give it a like. If you would like to see more, please subscribe. And I have a little bit of a clip at the end of my dog Bella, and I hope you enjoy, and we'll see you next time. Bye now. What you doing, Miss Bella? Are you going to help me with my organization today? No? Can you sit? Good girl.